Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television JPTV. I'm Brett. In my hands is I Survived the Nazi Invasion at 1944. Out this week in comic shops and bookstores. You can go get it. Really interesting graphic novel. I'm actually recording this on the Holocaust, National Holocaust Remembrance Day. Or I think it's just Holocaust Remembrance Day. So rather appropriate to do a review of this. Post will actually be up the day after. And I would have to think that Scholastic Graphics purposely released this week in honor of that day, and it was just a really smart timing on their part. I'm actually not familiar with the I Survived graphic novels. It's a really interesting set of graphic novels that kind of like tell you about these major events and people's experiences through them. So this one's clearly about the Holocaust and World War II. Fairly weighty subject, and I actually. We're going to talk about that a little bit because I think the way this graphic novel approaches that is really, really intelligent and smart. So the I Survived series is by Lauren Tarshis, and this was actually adapted by Georgia Ball with art by Alvaro Siraseca, colors by Juanma Aguilera, and the lettering is by Janice Chiang, and inks by Alvaro Siraseca. So this story is... there's a lot of different ways you can learn about the Holocaust. We're going to start with that. It is a difficult topic to discuss, especially for young kids, in that, it's a horrific event. To talk about people taken away, tortured, murdered, to show them imagery of what happened, like, it hits you. Like, it's not an easy thing to learn and grow up learning about. Being Jewish, this is something that I constantly was learned and reminded of throughout the years, and I couldn't really tell you when that started, but for a really long time I remember the horrible images shown, and this takes a little bit of a different approach. I would kind of dub this as like intro to World War II and the Holocaust. It doesn't actually have to deal with the death camps and the horrible things done. Instead, it takes a little bit of different approach, and I kind of like it. It's interesting. So the story revolves around two kids that are taken away. They're Polish. Germans invade. They're moved from their town and put into a ghetto. And their experiences of the ghetto, like they talk about that a little bit. It kind of gives you an idea as to like what the ghetto is, but again, doesn't go into too much detail about it, because that's not really the point of the story. The two kids wind up fighting with a soldier. Soldier injures himself, and then they go on the run from German soldiers. And they wound up teaming up with partisans, and partisans were the group of individuals. Was about 1 million individuals who were fighting the Germans in Europe. Of the 1 million, about 30,000 of them were Jewish. And they were soldiers. They were freedom fighters that were jacking up the Germans, and did a lot of good. There was a very important role and very important things that they did. So what's interesting is that it touches upon the major issues and a lot of the stuff that was going on during World War II without directly going into the details that might terrorize a child. The graphic novel, I think, does a fantastic job of serving as an introduction and hopefully getting to the point where like the kids are interested in learning more. I would say I probably would go with like young teenager, like 10 to maybe 14 would be the age. 10 to 13 would probably be the age that I would think. It seems a little bit maybe not good for like a high school student who would probably know about this, but younger kids who maybe want to dive in a little bit more. And what I think is really smart and intelligent was what, instead of focusing on the horrors and the death and the genocide, it instead takes a different route and focuses on the hope and the fighting spirit of those who got away and stayed and attempted to fight for their freedom and take on those evils. It's actually a somewhat positive story in that way. And it's almost more of a superhero narrative, if that makes sense. You could easily have told the story of these kids being taken away and their father being taken away to a camp, and talk about the not having any food and starving to death and seeing tons of bodies, and easily just done all these horrors and scared the shit out of kids reading it. But instead, it takes the there was these evil people, and they did evil things, and there was people that stood against them to stop it. And I think it's a really interesting way to approach the subject without diving directly into the subject. And it's, I think, after reading it and really kind of thinking about it, it seems to be a very intelligent way. Instead of starting with the concentration camps, you can touch upon them, which this does, but also tell the story of survival and the people who fought, and go from there to get people interested in learning more. And the story and the graphic novel does a great job of that, in that there's a lot of material in the back that takes you through that history. So if you are interested in the story, you can then stick around and read and learn more about World War II and the rise of Hitler and concentration camps and what the Nazis did and the rise of the Nazi Party and all that. There's more than enough material to get you to kind of take to that next step, which then would take you to the next step after that, where you'd learn more about these things in depth. So it's a way to broach the subject without just diving deep into it and scaring the crap out of younger kids. And I think it's really intelligent and smart way of going about it. So I have to give it a lot of credit that way. This is a very interesting approach, the one that I probably would have never thought of. Taking it as kind of a war first, and then going from there. But the aspect of the war isn't the specifics of the German aspect of it. It is more of a focus on the people who stood up to fight the Germans and fight the Nazis, and that's, I think, a really it's an approach I would think that I might use when broaching the subject with my kid eventually. And in the end, it's a story of hope. It's a story of survival and where you go from there. What do you do in adversity? Not just what they experienced in the war, but afterwards. So just a very, very interesting take and direction. The art is really solid. This was it was a quick read. This wasn't I spent hours and hours reading, but I think the art's pretty good. There's a good amount of detail. The coloring is good. It's good. It doesn't blow me away necessarily, but it achieves the narrative, and everything I think looks pretty solid overall. Nothing kind of jumped out at me. So overall, the graphic novel I think is really, really nice. Solid read, great introduction to the history, and great way to introduce young kids to that. You can go get this now. It's in comic shops. We got a link beneath this video. Put in your zip code, tell the shops near you. No shop, no problem. We do have affiliate links there. Affiliate links, so we get a small percentage by doing that. You help support our site, so thank you. And speaking of support, I want to thank Scholastic Graphics for hooking us up with a review copy, and thank you for watching. If you're into comics, if you're into graphic novels, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy. Keep it nice and consistent. Until next time, keep reading those comics and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.